Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Natalie. I am a tarot reader and an astrologer. Thank you for being here today. Today, we are going to go over the astrology of Jonah Hill. And one moment while I get the technology going and make sure that we're okay there and I can hear everything. All right, let's see. Natalie, I am a tarot reader. There I am. It's always weird to hear yourself talk. But for those of you who are watching this video later, cool. For those of you that are going to be here now, cool too. But I'm going to go ahead and start. Jonah Hill has been in the news recently for the text messages that were revealed by his ex-girlfriend, who showed a interesting side to him that we hadn't known before. And you know what's interesting about him is even before those text messages came out, I always kind of just felt something was off about him, or he just seemed very disagreeable or rude, or I don't know, something about him just was off to me. But we're going to go ahead and get started and look at his chart. Before we do that, I'm going to show you his picture. And for those of you who don't know who he is, let me share my screen and there we go. Cool. Okay, so this is Jonah Hill right here. He's 39 years old at this point. He is an actor. He's been around for a while. And just to say here, he was born on December 20th, 1983. He's an American actor, producer, writer, and director. He is known for his comedic roles in Superbad, Knocked Up, Get Him to the Greek, 21 Jump Street, This Is the End, Moneyball, Wolf on Wall Street, a lot of different stuff he's been in. And it just says here he was born in Los Angeles. His parents are here. There's his mom and dad. He comes from a Jewish family. They grew up in a nice neighborhood in Los Angeles. It just talks about his comedy roles. And anyway, we're going to look at Jonah Hill. He is a Capricorn rising, Sun in Sagittarius, okay, and Moon in Cancer. Now, what's really funny to me is he has multiple planets in Sagittarius, and you'd go, well, where's the Sagittarian here, right? But he looks like his rising sign. He definitely looks like a Capricorn rising. He's got those hipster vibes. He's got the dark, framed glasses. Like hipster fashion, in my opinion, is very Capricornian anyway, because it's super throwback. And so we'll talk about the fact that he's a Capricorn rising as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at his chart. And I am going to, let me look at the comments too. Yay. Aw, hi, Kate has great fate. Ooh, I like your name, Kate. Yeah. Oh, you love to put a face to a name to the hands. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Kate. Thank you. Bless you too. Namaste, my friend. And it's fun to come on and do these live astrology readings for you guys. And I always love it when you comment and you say things and you interact, or if you have opinions. The last one I did before was on Doja Cat, and a lot of people were jumping in with their opinions, and it was really fun. So thank you for being here, everybody. Now, let's go ahead and look at his chart, okay? So he is a Capricorn rising, 18 degrees, 56 minutes, and he has Moon in Cancer, okay? And he has Sun in Sagittarius. Look at that Sun in Sagittarius right there. So those are his big three. When we talk about in astrology, what are your big three? He would say he's a Capricorn rising, Moon in Cancer, Sun in Sagittarius. Now, I mentioned before, to me, he looks way more, and oftentimes we do look more like our rising sign. And he does look like a Capricorn rising to me when we looked at his picture. He's very, there's another picture of him. This is the more hippie Sagittarian side, I think. This is more of like the surfer guy, Hollywood guy type of side, but he also has this, very serious side to him too. And the interesting thing about him is he's known for making all these comedy movies, but at the same time, he's talked about it in the press before about how he wants to be taken seriously as a director, a writer. And you can see here that he has Mercury rising on his ascendant, which of course, and it's kind of interesting because I've looked at some other charts of comedians in the past, and a lot of them have a very prominent Mercury. For instance, Chris Farley, the great comedian Chris Farley, he had his Mercury directly opposite his ascendant. He was a, big guy who kind of used his body size for comedy and was really fun, and a sweet guy. From a lot of people talked about him that way. Jonah Hill has a different reputation, and his reputation, people have said like he is difficult to work with. He goes off script all the time. He improvises all the time, which is interesting, for a Mercury rising person. Of course, he's going to improvise all the time. Of course, he has, comedic timing and all those different things of being very mentally agile. And also in the sign of Capricorn too, very deadpan kind of humor, very dry humor, and also possibly very sarcastic humor. As we look at that, Mars is squaring his ascendant and also squaring that Mercury in Capricorn. Mars in Libra square Mercury in Capricorn. Now we're going to talk more about that Mars square Mercury because it's a big deal for him in his chart. And sometimes his one-liners or his comebacks, especially when he's feeling very defensive because his feelings have been hurt, right? Look at that Cancer moon, because his feelings have been hurt. His comebacks, his one-liners, the things that he says can sometimes be very brutal. Now, let's see. Oh, Chris Farley. Yes, Kate the Great. Yeah, no, I know Chris Farley was amazing, wasn't he? And, he had a really hard end, didn't he? And I actually have a reading of his chart on this channel too. If you look at it in my lives, in my playlist where I go into his chart. Now, what's interesting is that like larger than life personality that Chris Farley had, and the fact that he was a bigger guy, it kind of also pertains to Jonah Hill a little bit too, because he has this Sun Jupiter conjunction here in Sagittarius. So of course he's funny. Of course he's goofy. All right. And Sun Jupiter, of course, Jupiter is a planet that represents like body fat and represents largeness. And so like Chris Farley, he was a large dude. Also, he's not anymore, though. That's the thing. He's not anymore. So Jonah Hill used to be quite overweight and very sensitive about his weight. And let me show you guys a photo here of when he was bigger. Look, there he is as a bigger guy, bigger kid, right? Bigger guy. In his first movie, Superbad, he was like a bigger guy, but you can see him here, like he's really slimmed down. You can see him there with his ex is what we're going to talk about. He's the one that told her, I'm literally the best boyfriend on earth. So we'll be talking about their relationship, but look at him. He's, slimmed down, but he's obviously he's been a bigger guy and he struggled with his weight, and particularly with his mother telling him negative things about his weight growing up. So his mother would make comments to him and made him feel really bad about himself, made him feel like very low about himself. He said he had almost no self-esteem. So you look at a guy who has a Sun Jupiter conjunction and you go, okay, well, that guy probably has a lot of, Sun Jupiter self-esteem, right? But actually that Sun Jupiter is in the 12th house, as we can see here, which is it's difficult as far as being able to express your confidence, right? And the 12th house represents what is hidden, what is unconscious. And, for him, unlike Chris Farley, he doesn't want to be known as the big, funny, bubbling around kind of a guy. He wants to be taken seriously. And he doesn't want people talking about his weight. Even when he lost weight, he was like, I don't make comments on that. I know you mean well by telling me I look good or I look nice, but I don't want to hear it. And so he is very, very prickly. And you can see that moon in Cancer right there. Very, very prickly, very like getting feelings hurt easily. Now, the other thing, so that's interesting about Jonah Hill with the Sun Jupiter conjunction. Now, he has been very lucky, and he does talk about his privilege and how he's been very lucky. And, because he grew up in Hollywood and his parents had connections to Hollywood. So, he grew up in that lifestyle, making it easier for him to be discovered and making it easier for him to, make friends and make money and know the right people. So he does talk about how he's been privileged, which is, a Jupiter, Sun Jupiter type of a thing, being privileged at something. But also, like I said, it represents weight and largeness. So, very large bodied, very big boned type of a guy who really, slimmed down and didn't want to be known as that. Now, what's very interesting about Jonah Hill, I'm just going to go ahead and take this little piece right here. Jonah Hill's father was a accountant, and I think he still is one, I don't know, but he was an accountant and a business manager to various people in Hollywood. He used to be the accountant for Guns N' Roses back in the day. And so you see that business acumen with Jonah Hill, and you see that, an accountant would be, a perfect accountant could be a Capricorn rising with Mercury and Capricorn on the ascendant. Like that truly could be somebody who's, or a Virgo rising with Mercury and Virgo on the ascendant. That is very, analytical. It's very business oriented. And so you can see already that he is, he's a funny guy, Sun Jupiter, haha, funny, joke, joke, joke. But he wants to be taken seriously, and he gets really upset when people insult his appearance. So let's go ahead, and anybody would get upset when somebody's appearance is insulted, but even just looking at his chart without even knowing all the history, I would have said right away that he had an issue with his mother. And first of all, mom is going to be very important anyway, because this moon in Cancer, mom is going to be important anyway. But when we look at the planet that represents mom, we look at the ruler of the 10th house, and that is this Mars in Libra. Now, Mars is in detriment in Libra, so Mars doesn't enjoy being in Libra, but you can see the mom is squaring Jonah Hill's ascendant. The ascendant is your body, what you look like, and here we see the mom also squaring his Mercury and squaring his ascendant. So his mom giving him, giving him messages about his weight and his appearance that were very rough on him. And he did say that he felt an adversarial relationship towards his mother. Now, Mars square the ascendant, or my mom representing Mars squaring my ascendant, definitely is going to create an adversarial relationship with mom. And so he had that experience already growing up. Like, mom doesn't like the way I look. Mom thinks I'm, not a good looking person. Mom is telling me to lose weight all the time. So this type of energy probably breaking down his self-esteem, and probably another reason why he gets very prickly when people talk to him in a certain way. He was actually on Jimmy Kimmel, I think it was, and Jimmy Kimmel was like, "I'm surprised you smell good. Like, you actually smell good." And he's like, "Why?" Instead of laughing it off and being like, "ha ha ha," and making a joke back, he's like, "Why would you say something like that?" Like, very direct, very confrontational, right? Mercury square Mars, talking about how he smells, how he looks, all those types of things. Now, in astrology, the 6th house also represents, particularly in the Hindu tradition, it represents how we handle competition and how we handle the people that challenge us. And that's why Mars is said to rejoice in the 6th house. For other reasons too, but it's also like that energy to fight back. Okay. But my feeling about Jonah Hill is that he is so sensitive, and he has no when you've got all these planets too, especially your identity, your sun and everything in the 12th house, and you've got your moon in Cancer, this is a very sensitive person who can't handle or doesn't handle those types of situations well, can't just like brush it off or haha or laugh about it, but is instantly offended and instantly like firing back at someone. And so I find that very interesting. And he's had so many problems in interviews that he said he no longer will be doing interviews to support his movies because of the anxiety and panic attacks that he gets promoting his movies. Now, when we talk about what planet may represent anxiety and panic attacks, we definitely can talk about Uranus. Uranus is the planet of panic attacks and anxiety. Now, Saturn can bring anxiety too, like overwhelming dread, but pure adrenaline panic attacks, that is Uranus, and that definitely represents that. Full disclosure, I myself have struggled with anxiety and panic attacks, and I once was able to time to the minute a really bad panic attack that I had. And I looked at the chart, and Uranus was rising in that chart. So, not only, take my word for it, Uranus is the planet of panic attacks. Now, you see, he struggled with panic attacks or anxiety for 20 plus years, he said. Now, look at that Uranus conjunction the South Node. So that's coming from a past life energy too. And the fact that this moon is in a quincunx with Uranus says a lot too, because you can tell with the moon quincunx Uranus, he doesn't like surprises, particularly when it comes to women or when it comes to family or when it comes to like moving or have to go somewhere else. He was born in Hollywood. I think he's lived in Hollywood his whole life. Like, he's not a guy that I see moving around a lot or changing a lot of things because he values consistency. And I also feel with that moon quincunx Uranus, he doesn't like wild women that are very rebellious and, free and all of that. He likes women who are more modest. And we see this Mercury or this moon trine Saturn and this moon trine Pluto. So he's liking women who, he likes women who are more traditional, women who are more like family oriented, women who are very like dutiful and dedicated, women who will take care of him, right? And the reason why I keep talking about women and the moon and family, it is this moon in Cancer, and also the moon is ruling his 7th house of partners, okay? And he happens to date women. So, he likes his women to be conservative, traditional, respectful, all this type of stuff. He probably likes them to clean up after him too. He probably likes them to nurture him and take care of him. He is not liking women who, moon Uranus, you could say, is a woman who doesn't fulfill the regular roles that quote unquote a woman would. It's a woman who maybe doesn't want to get married, or a woman who doesn't want to have a family, or a woman who, if she does want to have a family, she's unusual in some type of a way, or she's a different type of a mom, or she's not your average run of the mill mom. She's like a quirky person. Okay. And it's interesting because I have moon trine Uranus in my chart. I never wanted to have kids. When I was younger, I was very much against marriage and traditional things. So you can see that moon Uranus connection that, he has it in a quincunx. So he doesn't want that. It makes him nervous, and he needs a woman who's going to stick around. Moon Saturn, moon trine Pluto. He needs a woman who isn't going to abandon them. He needs a ride or die who's always going to be by his side. And he certainly doesn't want to be with a woman who challenges him through her rebellious actions. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because of the text messages between him and his ex-girlfriend. And, she has accused him of being a misogynistic narcissist. And she released all the text messages. So we're going to go through the text message dialogue, and we're going to point to what aspects in the chart or what planetary combinations in this chart support what he is saying. Okay. I would also like to point out for the record that he has Mars in Libra. And again, that Mars in Libra is squaring his Mercury. It's squaring his ascendant. So it's a challenging placement already, but it also has issues. Now, Mars in Libra can be, now there is a positive side to Mars in Libra. Mars in Libra is seeking equality, justice, seeking, like, wanting to be that person to kind of, if there's conflict, like bring the different sides together, somebody who fights for the rights of other people, somebody who, is seeking that justice in life. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, or someone who fights for what they believe in, for the ideas that they care about, and things like that. That is a very good thing in life. But there's also a side to Mars in Libra that can be passive aggressive, or, one of Jonah Hill's text messages, which I'll get into later, was, I don't want to fight, but you do, and clearly he's talking back and forth with her. So clearly he is fighting back with her, but he's saying, I don't want to fight, but you do, these type of things. And so we're going to look at that Mars in Libra and how it's probably very challenging to be with him, but also challenging to have a discussion or an argument with him, because he's always, bringing up multiple different sides of the story. He's always, he may be making comments that are very harsh as well, with Mercury square Mars, like very harsh comments, very controlling comments. The other thing I would say about his temperament and the way that he's speaking to people is it may be overly businesslike. And we see this Capricorn rising with Mercury in Capricorn. So he's going to, and you'll see it in the text messages when we go over them. When he speaks to people, he's going to speak to them in a very formal, business-like type of manner. He may even kind of talk to people like he's like to a partner, like he's their father, or he's some type of a paternal figure. As that Capricorn energy, very serious, very structured in the way that he's talking to people. And, if you're a businessman or woman making a presentation, that's wonderful. But if you're trying to, discuss something with your partner and they're giving you a laundry list of their boundaries, right? He's a Capricorn rising, a laundry list of his quote unquote boundaries. To me, that is very businesslike. It's a bull. You can see where he is fighting with structure, or he is fighting in a way. And when he is talking to his ex, or they're sending messages back and forth, he's being exceedingly polite. He's definitely showing that Mars Libra side. Like he's being very polite, but also businesslike, but also passive aggressive. And this is probably a nightmare to put up with. Okay. On top of that, with his tendency to be insulted by literally everything and his tendency to be a total man-child with this moon in Cancer. Okay. And, the other thing about Jonah Hill, I'm going to say, so I'm calling him a man-child. Yes, I am. The other thing I am going to say, and not just because he has the moon in Cancer, there's a lot of other things here. And, the role of a woman and the role of how he wants his woman to behave is evident in his chart. Okay. When we see this moon in Cancer, trine Saturn and trine Pluto, again, he wants a woman who is traditional, modest, humble. He wants a woman who's going to be his emotional rock, a woman who's going to nurture him. Don't forget the ruler of the 7th house is the moon in Cancer. Okay. And if we use derived houses, his partner would be in her own 12th house. So, it's almost like he wants his partner to forget all of her needs and put all of her needs aside to nurture him, to make him feel comfortable, to make him feel safe, to make him feel secure, to make him feel like, he's cozy and comfy and he has what he wants and what he needs. These are very high expectations on a relationship. high expectations to put on, and it's very traditional. That's the other thing I would say about his chart. Now, what's funny about him is he's called himself a male feminist, which when I read you guys the text that we're going back and forth, you're going to be like, no way in hell is this guy a male feminist. Okay. Now, the problem with this Sun, Jupiter, Neptune conjunction in the 12th house is really a problem of delusion and grandiosity, and also total lack of self-awareness. Like, I'm this, or I'm that, or, this is who I am. And it's like, no, when you really look at the situation, we're talking about somebody who has extremely high expectations of women. We have someone who's been very damaged in his relationship with his own women, with his own mother. And I could tell that right away looking at this chart without even knowing too much, that it's like, okay, his mom is in a square to him. His mom is in a square to his communication planet. Whereas when I look at his father, the ruler of the 4th house, okay, is represented by that Venus. His dad is represented by the Venus in Scorpio, which is in a conjunction to Jonah's ruler of his ascendant, which is that Saturn in Scorpio right there. So, him and his dad, maybe he has more respect for his father. He gets along with his father better, but, he definitely has mommy issues, and we can see that clearly as day with his chart. And so, he is seeking a woman who is very, predictable, dependable, right? Moon trine Saturn, predictable, dependable, emotionally. And I could also see him being very emotionally clingy to a woman as well. Because if we look at Venus as well in his chart is going to represent women or his girlfriend or his wife as well. And he's in a conjunction with her, represented by Saturn. And so I also think he has the ability to become very clingy, very needy, and not just because of the Venus-Saturn conjunction, but also because of the moon trining Pluto and the moon trining Saturn. Now, you might say, oh, trine is a really good thing. Like, trines are awesome. And you know what? I agree with you on that. I think for a woman who is very private, self-contained, very traditional, looking for a provider, looking for a guy that wants to have children, looking for a man who has money, who can support a family. I think, wow, here's Jonah Hill. He's ready to do that. And his chart represents that. But if you're a woman who doesn't fall in line with his expectations of what women should do or what women should be, based on the disappointment in his own relationship with his own mother, then he sees you as adversarial, and he's going to fight with you and be passive aggressive and be controlling with you to try to get you to behave. Okay. And so you can definitely see this. Oh, hi, 6 of Swords. Hi. Oh, you love that I'm doing this reading. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yeah. And so I think it's really important in astrology that we don't just look at combinations of planets and go, well, right away, that's a narcissist, or right away, that's because this could be the chart of somebody who is a very good provider. Look at the ruler of the 2nd house of money, okay, is represented by this Saturn in a conjunction with Venus and Scorpio. So this is somebody who, works hard too as well. We see Saturn in a conjunction with the midheaven in Scorpio there. This is somebody who works hard, who's a workaholic. This is somebody who likes to take care of whoever they're with money. This is somebody, because it's in Scorpio, we have Saturn in Scorpio and Venus in Scorpio, of course, Saturn ruling the 2nd house of money. This could be somebody who, likes to control the money in the partnership, somebody who likes to take care of the money, somebody who likes to, doesn't need their partner to take care of anything with the money, that type of thing. Now, remember, I mentioned his father is an accountant for Guns N' Roses and a business manager, right? And so, he does have that Mercury in Capricorn. rising. So he is going to be, business-like, intelligent, knowing things, knowing how to work things, knowing how to do things, business-oriented, money-oriented. Look at the part of fortune right here in the 7th house. The part of fortune is at 26 degrees Cancer in the 7th house of partnership. Now, you might be saying, well, what's the part of fortune represent? The part of fortune represents money. It can be another representation of how we handle money and how we look at money and how we view that. And so we see the part of fortune. It also has to do with our happiness as well, and our general, do we feel good about our lives type of a thing? Do we feel secure? So for him, his happiness, his security, taking care of a family, having money, being able to do that, he really is into that. And, had he not been such a controlling jerk, been exposed as a controlling jerk, you could say, well, this is a person who potentially could make a very good husband, or this is a person who potentially could really take care of a family and really wants a family. Now, the other thing I would say is that the ruler of his 5th house of children here is, so the 5th house having to pertain with our children. So he has the North Node in Gemini in the 5th house, and Mercury is the ruler of that 5th house. Now he has Mercury rising. So again, his children are rising on his ascendant in his chart. So of course he wants to be a father. Of course he wants to be a parent. Of course he wants to teach his children everything. Of course, he wants to guide his children and, tell them how life is and show them the way in life. Of course, he wants to do all that stuff. And, he'll probably be a bit of a strict parent. I would say so too, particularly, he just had a daughter with his new girlfriend. And I can imagine he'd probably be a very strict dad, especially when his daughter is starting to date and all this, we've got the Venus Saturn conjunction in Scorpio, probably a little bit controlling as a father, probably, practical as a father, wanting to teach his kids things, but also probably strict too. So we've got this image of this guy. Now, all of that would be fine and well. All of that would, good. Somebody who wants to be a father, I'm sure he'll meet a lovely woman who also wants to be a mother and settle down and have kids and, la-ti-da. And all of that would be beautiful, except for the fact that we are dealing with someone who has some significant traumas that have made him into the person that he is today, which is to say very controlling, very possessive, now potentially abusive. Obviously, his ex is calling him a misogynistic narcissist, and we're going to get into that. Okay. Obviously, I don't know her, and I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I can't say what he is, but based on those messages, there's problems here. Also, take a look at that beauty. You'd go, okay, Sun Jupiter conjunction, happy, confident, outgoing, okay, sure. But like I said, that combination is in the 12th house. And, it also, that Sun in Sagittarius is also in an exact quincunx with Chiron, in the 4th house of family. So, and happiness. So him not really being happy with who he is, him not really liking the image of himself, him not really being comfortable with who he is. And as we know, when we're dealing with narcissism, we're dealing with has had significant trauma, but they've gone dark with it to the point where they've had to create a false self and live in denial in order to, in order to bypass the trauma. So, and, that would all be fine and well too, if narcissists weren't such horrible people that destroy your life, and in their quest to contain their, self-hatred and promote their self-delusion. Now, unfortunately, with his chart, I do see some traits of narcissism. And I'm not going to say this for everyone, but I will say, the thing about a trait that I would see with that is this Jupiter Neptune in conjunction with his sun. Now, Jupiter Sun is wonderful, but there's also a dark side to it, which is like, entitled, hypocrite, grandiosity, like in just me, entitlement. I want this, I want that. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. You should love me. You should, because I do everything for you, because I'm essentially generous and wonderful and amazing, right? And then you've got Neptune there too, which is the lies and the delusion. Every single narcissist that I've met in my life is completely delusional, no connection to reality. Like, if you grew up in a family with a narcissist, a sibling or whoever, later in life, they'll act like nothing happened. Like no trauma happened, nothing happened. Oh no, my childhood was perfect. It was fine. It was great. I'm good. This type of energy, this very delusional energy that is wanting to push away the truth. Okay. So unfortunately, I do see those grandiosity, delusional side. And we're going to talk about it with the text messages as well. The title of this reading is called "I'm Literally the Best Boyfriend on Earth." Okay. And that is a quote from his text message to which he gave to his ex-girlfriend. So we're going to talk about that. Okay. And Jessica, damn, that stellium in the 12th. Yeah, indeed. And, the 12th house, you could also look at that Sun, Jupiter, Neptune in the 12th and go, is he a guru? Is he a spiritual guru? Is he, highly evolved guru who's sent here to enlighten everyone? If this was a chart of someone else, I would say, yeah, but I also don't, Jonah Hill's interesting because he's Jewish. He was brought up Jewish, and he doesn't really follow much of the Jewish traditions, except for the part that has to do with loving your family and wanting a family, which is something that he has expressed before. Those exact words, like, he doesn't follow all the spiritual traditions of Judaism, but he loves the part where everyone's close in the family and everyone's doing family things and that type of stuff. But you could also say, like, is this a really enlightened human being, or is this a person who is like a guru who takes advantage of their followers, right? Is this like, there's so many examples of that. Is this a grandiose cult leader? You could go a couple different ways with the Sun, Jupiter, Sagittarius, stellium in the 12th house. Okay. You could also say, well, that's somebody who could be very kind and generous and loving and selfless and, doing a lot for charity, all that type of stuff. But for a person who isn't spiritual or, not evolved or that type of energy, even spiritual people can be really messed up, FYI, I'm sure you guys know that. But for somebody who's more focused on the material plane, Capricorn rising, Mercury in Capricorn, for somebody who's more focused in the material world, to me, and who is completely wounded the way he's been wounded, to me, that is more of a grandiose, I'm right, everything I'm doing is wonderful, kind of delusional attitude. Okay. And the quote, yeah, I'm literally the best boyfriend on earth. And what's so funny? He's also quoted in those text messages of telling his ex, I treated you beautifully. Doesn't that sound like Donald Trump? It was so funny to me. I've treated you beautifully. Just like Donald Trump goes, I love the poorly educated, just that kind of verbiage, that type of thing kind of reminds me of Donald Trump a little bit, which is like, okay, are we dealing with the grandiose narcissist here? I've treated you beautifully, as he's telling her what to wear, what to do, who to be friends with, cutting her off from her sources of income. I've treated you beautifully, right? Which is extremely grandiose and delusional and also very preachy. And I think he does with that Mars and Libra square Mercury with the Sun Jupiter conjunction. I do think he is a very preachy and condescending person as well, too. And, Yeah. So not great energy is what I would say. Now I want to, I've got more here that we are definitely going to go through. You guys know what is so funny is that he actually made a movie called Cyrus. Go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. But this moon in Cancer, I think it's so funny. Let me show you guys the movie he made with Marissa Tomei and John C. Reilly. So this was a movie from a while ago where that's him and his mom. And his mom starts dating a new guy and he tries to sabotage it. And him and his mom have like an unusually close relationship where he's trying to do things to sabotage this guy that's trying to date his mom. And he plays like this, manipulative, cunning, like man child, which I think is so funny. I'm like, is that literally who he is? A manipulative and cunning man child? Is art imitating life, So anyway, I just thought that was really funny. But let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead. So I mentioned the mother and how, the mother issues and the things he's had with his mother. What's also funny is somebody who used to live with him, like his old roommate, Justin Long. He has a friend named Justin Long, who's also an actor who has been tied to trying to hit on underage girls and trying to do inappropriate things with underage girls. That's his friend, okay, that he used to live with. And he said that Jonah is very messy. Look at that Sun, Jupiter, Neptune in the 12th house, like very messy, not organized to live with. So, what's funny is interesting to me is this moon in the 6th house representing the partner. Does he expect his partner to be like a domestic slave and do everything and clean and cook and, support his career and, those high expectations that I was telling you guys about the moon trine Saturn. Okay. But anyway, let's go ahead and I talked about that. He's a Capricorn rising. I want to talk a little bit about the Venus, and I want to talk a little bit about the Saturn and Scorpio conjunction Venus, okay? Because I feel like we've touched on some of the other stuff. So I want to touch on this energy right here. And so as I told you, like Venus represents in a man's chart, represents his partner. If he's, liking women, then it represents his partner. And we have Venus in Scorpio. Okay. So remember how I told you guys that he is like really into he really wants to be with a woman who's very humble and, dedicated and all that kind of stuff, which is also Venus Saturn, right? I don't want to be with somebody who's superficial. I want to be with somebody who, only shows their beauty to me, who doesn't like show other people, privacy, right? With this scorpionic energy. I want to be with somebody who is sexually just for me. I want to, own and control that person, that type of thing. Now, I just have to say it because something I'm getting about his chart is either he's a horrible lover or he's a completely freaky lover. I'm headed more towards the freaky direction. But, while he wants a woman to be like this mothering figure, amazing Mother Teresa type figure in his life, nurturing, all kind, all loving. I also think he is very attracted to extremely sexy women, Venus and Scorpio, okay, to taboo, to very sexy. And it's like he can't get away from that. And so I think he gets into this position where he finds a very sexy, beautiful woman and he tries to own and control her and, guilt her for not being more modest and not being more, for needing to post pictures of herself on Instagram where she's wearing a swimsuit. Like, how dare you, this type of energy. Okay. And, so I want to talk a little bit about Saturn and Scorpio. So the ruler of his ascendant is this Saturn and Scorpio in a conjunction with his midheaven, saying that Jonah is constantly working, that he's a workaholic. You may think here, like, does he do drugs or drink? because of all the 12th house, alcohol, things like that, Sun, Neptune. He said he used to in the past, but he doesn't party at all anymore. He is almost 40 years old, but he says he's a workaholic. He's got Saturn and Scorpio with the midheaven of his career. He takes his work seriously. He takes his relationships seriously. Okay. And another interesting thing is Jonah Hill has a clothing line, and we see Venus in the 10th house of in the 10th house of career. Of course, Venus having to do with fashion. Jonah Hill's mother also worked in the fashion industry, and a lot of people have commented on his style and said that he has like amazing style. Now, I don't know. To me, I don't think his style is that great, but a lot of other people are like, oh no, he's a style icon. Look at him. To me, he looks like a surfer, which he does surf. Actually, he does look like, boho. This is a very Sagittarian look. Boho Hollywood type of thing. Okay, here's him in a matching suit, no shirt underneath, with his ex who exposed all those text messages. Here's him looking like a bored hipster, Capricornian rising. Look at that. Okay, hipster, Capricorn energy. And then here's with his baby's mama, the woman that just gave birth to his child. Anyway, doesn't she kind of look a little scorpionic? I think she does, but Sagittarian too. But anyway, and here we showed the picture of him when he was younger and overweight. But anyway, so you see kind of how he looks and how he's giving that energy. Now, so I wanted, again, the Saturn and Scorpio in the 10th house representing him. He's a hard worker. He works hard. And the other thing about Jonah Hill is he doesn't want to act anymore. He wants to be a director. In fact, he's always wanted to be a director. And what do directors do? They guide and manage actors. They guide the film crew. They set the budget and the schedule for the movie. Okay. So that's more of the business side of show business. And we can see Capricorn rising with Mercury in Capricorn. Of course, he wants to be more on the business analytical side of things, less on the acting. And of course, the third house, third and fifth house in the chart would both be strong indications for actors and performers. But you can see this Mars representing his third house of acting and drama is in a square to his ascendant and in a square to his Mercury. So I don't really think he likes acting that much. I don't think he really likes that part. I don't think he really wants to do acting anymore. I mean, he said that too. So I think it's really interesting because the ruler of the third house, which is music, acting, drama, etc., is in a square to his ascendant. So he wants to be the Saturn and Scorpio guy. Okay. He wants to be Saturn and Scorpio. He wants to have the artistic vision for the movie that he's working on. Venus there too. He has his own clothing line as well, as I mentioned, but he wants to be the director. He wants to be the controller. He wants to guide and manage other actors. Okay, that's what a director does. And he has done some directing already, but you can tell he's much more comfortable in that role, probably because he has control, and it's less about showing him and his body and his face and more about being behind the scenes and controlling things. And so, yeah. Oh, Garnet Goddess. Hi there, my friend. You're wondering if I do synastry charts for clients. I have an interesting thing about synastry charts, and just to kind of digress for a second here. And this is kind of following after one of my favorite, like modern day astrologers named Jessica Lanyadoo. She's amazing. She taught herself. She's completely psychic. She taught herself. She's definitely more modern astrology rather than like traditional techniques, but she's an amazing astrologer. And anyway, I've always admired her work very much so. And she's a triple Capricorn, I think. And her whole philosophy on synastry is something that I agree with too. And her philosophy on synastry. And synastry is where you take the chart of yourself and your person and you put them together and you see what is happening based on the two charts together. Her whole thing on that is if you're in a long-term committed relationship with someone, you live with them, you're married to them, you've been with them for a significant amount of time, go ahead and do the synastry chart. That's fine. You can go ahead and do that then. But if you're not engaged with someone on that level, and I don't mean like engaged, ring on your finger, but if you're not with someone in a long-term serious relationship, then you're dating that person. And when we're dating someone, her whole philosophy is you look in your own chart for what it says about your relationships and what you need to know about your relationships. So I would take that too. If somebody had been with someone for a very long time and wanted a synastry, I would look at it. But if somebody's just dating someone, I'm not going to look at the synastry. So that would be my answer to that. And truly, you would look at, if you were trying to, for a client, analyze their love life, you would look at their transits, their progress chart, their solar returns, the last two, the most going forward solar returns. There's so many things to look at when you're talking about yourself and your dating and going about dating in your own life versus going to someone else's chart until that relationship is more solidified. Anyway, so I actually agree with her point of view on that. And it's so funny because she always calls herself a huge boner killer. And I'm like, yeah, I could see that, right? Like telling people, no, I'm not going to do synastry unless you've been with the person for a really long time and your fates are tied together. Okay. And it's like, yeah, it's a huge boner killer probably, but what do you expect from a, triple Capricorn? But anyways, so I just think that that's kind of funny. So anyway, he is represented by Saturn in Scorpio. And so, of course, he's serious. Of course, he wants to be a director. Of course, he's a workaholic, all these different things. Does he love fashion? Does he have a fashion company? Venus? Yes, he does. Okay. Does he meet sexy, beautiful women that he potentially could hook up with because of his career? Yes, he does. Venus and Scorpio with Saturn. Okay. But the issue with him meeting beautiful women like that are very sexy and beguiling is that he all of a sudden feels not good enough, or he feels threatened, or he feels he needs to control or possess in some type of a way. So that's very interesting to me. Now, what I find fascinating as well, everybody, when it comes to him is this is his ex that he was telling, who's a surfer, and he was telling her, don't be posting. She's a professional surfer and she teaches surfing. And he was telling her, don't post pictures of yourself surfing. You can't do that. You can't post anything in a bathing suit, no more modeling, all that stuff. And look how she's dressed. They're dressed exactly alike there in the same, outfit. But look at his baby's mama. Look at what she's wearing. She's walking around like that. I think they both have a bad look on their face because probably the media is harassing them and he's known for actually really hating the media. But, and I don't think she likes the media very much either. But how's he okay with her walking around like that when the other girl can't even post pictures of her surfing to Instagram? So, again, with the hypocrisy, sorry, I didn't say that right. Again, with the hypocrisy, I'm not a huge fan. I have to say no on that. The hypocrisy is a no for me. Okay. And so let's go ahead and keep looking at his chart. So he wants to direct. He doesn't want to act anymore. He can become obsessed with women. I do think too, with the Venus and Scorpio, probably very passionate. But we also see Venus with Saturn. So, there is this lack of trust that could be going on as well, where he is getting obsessive, anxious, suspicious, mistrustful, hypervigilant, constantly looking for threats. Okay. Difficult to forgive, very difficult to forgive women, holds things against them for not doing what he says type of energy. Okay. Bitterness, obsessed with being in charge and leading things. He's in his own 10th house there, and can't let others take the wheel, this type of thing. Hard to let go of control. Okay. Wants the woman that he's with to be like him, to be like, the female version of him. Okay. That type of thing. This also, you guys, is a huge chart of constipation. I just have to say, like, this is a very constipated chart, and I wouldn't be surprised if he deals with issues with constipation because, we've got Capricorn rising. That's a very dry energy. We've got, Saturn and Scorpio with Venus, very holding in the shit. You know what I mean? And we've got that Moon in the 6th house of our digestion and our, bowels. And we've got, Saturn and Scorpio is the definition of slow moving bowels. Okay. Because of course, Saturn represents slow and Scorpio is representing the bowels. So it wouldn't surprise me if he had a lot of constipation, but also a lot of emotional constipation, a lot of things, a lot of anger that he's holding in. To me, he always looks very angry. He doesn't look like a jovial Sun Jupiter guy. He looks like I think he can pretend and act like one, but he, to me, seems very serious and very angry. Like when you look at pictures of him, huge chart of constipation, the dryness of Capricorn with Mercury on the ascendant, Saturn and Scorpio. Like I said, he could be a very freaky dude, like very sexually freaky, that gets sexually obsessed with women, okay, and wants to own their sexuality type of a thing. Okay. And it's funny because even Jonah Hill has said himself that he has resting bitch face. And that doesn't surprise me with the Saturn and Scorpio. I mean, for sure. And he likes to be in control of his money. The ruler of his 2nd house is also in the 10th house. So, he's putting his money into his creative projects, to producing movies, which he has done in the past. He maybe doesn't want to show emotions, or he always wants to appear in control, but it's interesting because his ex said that she got really sick of being the emotional rock in the relationship, or always having to hold it together. Look at that Moon trine Saturn, right? I always have to hold it together. Now, what's interesting in astrology is that Saturn is very much benefited by being in a conjunction with beautiful, benefic Venus, right? So he's very much benefited by being in a conjunction with Venus. But is Venus benefited by being in a conjunction with Saturn? Not really. And that's where, I do like Venus and Saturn for mature longevity, relationships, taking relationships seriously, like not fooling around, loyalty, sticking with someone, mature love. I love Venus, Saturn for that. But, when you add a dash of Scorpio to it, and then you've got all these other factors in his chart with the grandiosity and the denial, that's where we find the controlling going on. Okay. And, so let's see. Also, Venus, Saturn can have to do with feelings of ugliness or not feeling attractive, and then all that anger in Scorpio that he pushed down, and probably all the anger that he has from women in the past, from being rejected by women because he thought he was ugly or he felt he was ugly, so you can see that energy there for sure. And, let's see, what else do I want to say? Venus in Scorpio, and I talked about him. Okay, so Saturn has to do with restrictions, and in Scorpio, it can talk about restrictions and obsessive control. So I want to put restrictions on my partner, Saturn equaling boundaries and restrictions. Now, his whole discussion about boundaries and, what a boundary is, it's very Saturnian, right? Because he mentions boundaries multiple times in his text messages. But also, can you see a guy who has Sun, Jupiter, Neptune in the 12th house having issues with boundaries? Oh, yeah. But of course, he's talking about boundaries, Mercury and Capricorn. These are my boundaries, bullet point list, right? And the boundaries are actually about controlling the partner. Okay. Venus in Scorpio with Saturn, the restrictions that he wants to put on his partner. Okay. And, Saturn having to do with something very traditional and very long term. Like I said, he wants that. But Venus Saturn can also doubt his attraction, his attractive his attraction factor. So he has doubts about his own attraction, Venus and Saturn. Okay. But also Venus with Saturn, he's looking for beauty with integrity or beauty with substance. Okay. And he went off on his ex-girlfriend for being a model, talking about, oh yeah, like great career, I'm sure that'll work out wonderfully for your relationships. That's very, substantive, like that type of a thing, very sarcastic, right? Mercury square Mars. But, basically making fun of her for being a model or, even though he knew she was a model when he started dating her. The funny thing to me is his baby's mama, the new woman that he's with, she's not a model. She does work in the fashion industry, but her mother was a very famous model. So, he's just a huge hypocrite is what I see anyway. So we have Venus Saturn could also be cynical attitudes toward beauty. And we definitely saw that. Him dealing with rejection from women. Okay. Venus Saturn, rejection from women, but dealing with it in a very unforgiving, rageful type of a way in Scorpio. Okay. Talking about how modeling is a fake profession and it's for people who have no substance. And, so this whole thing that he's talking about is a way to control. He's trying to control her, make her feel badly for modeling and doing stuff like that. But anyway, so seeking sexual restrictions on partners, right? So he picks very beautiful, very sexy partners, but then he's trying to restrict their sexuality, Saturn and Scorpio, okay? Very jealous, very possessive, seeking women who are very beautiful, but wanting to control them, like I said. He also is talking about how he wants a woman who's very humble, a woman who doesn't like to show herself, okay? Modest women, traditional women. Yet he's dating a 25-year-old swimsuit model who's a surfer. Okay, dude, again, with the hypocrisy and the delusion there. Okay. He likes women probably who are very private and don't talk about the relationship a lot. Okay. And someone who keeps to themselves. His current baby's mama, her Instagram is actually private. His baby's mama's Instagram is private. So you can't even actually see it. And people have said about her that she's very like introverted and quiet in a lot of ways. So maybe he finally found what he was looking for there. Let's see what else. And, I want a partner who's beautiful and sexy, Venus and Scorpio, but only for me. Okay. Only beautiful and sexy for me, no one else. Okay. And it's just funny to me. It's like he can't stay away from the beautiful, sexy women, but he also can't be with them. I mean, it's kind of crazy. But anyway, so let's go ahead and I want to go into the text messages because I think that is going to be very interesting. Okay. So let me go through and read some of the text messages, and we're going to point out where that is coming through in the chart. Okay. So first things first, he told his girlfriend. So now I'm talking about the text messages between Jonah Hill and his ex-girlfriend who published the messages, the one who's calling him a misogynist narcissist. Okay. And she is a pro surfer. She is a surf instructor and she models swimwear, and she has an Instagram page as well. Okay. Just a little bit of a background. She is 25 years old. All right. So he is telling her, this is Jonah Hill's words to her. He's saying, I respect your love of surfing, but I respect myself as well. Okay. To me, that's very much because all of his text messages are about respect and boundaries. It sounds almost like your dad talking to you, or like, when you're a kid and you do something wrong and your dad sits you down to have a stern talk about his boundaries and respecting his rules while you're in his household, and you won't be sneaking out at 2 a.m, to go hang out with boys. If you live in my house, you respect my rules and my authority. Like, his messages are very much like that. But that opening line where he says, I respect your love of surfing, but I respect myself first. Okay. To me, that's very Mars in Libra. Okay. Because it's like, hey, I respect your love of surfing, but, it's this kind of contradiction, kind of, arguing, but not arguing, if you know what I'm saying. It's very Mars in Libra. It's also Capricorn rising. Then he says, if you want marriage and family, okay, so these two have been talking about marriage and family. If you want marriage and family, you can't use the 25 years old card, okay? So he's telling her, if you want to you can't say that you're young and you still want to, surf, and you still want to wear what you want to wear and hang out with who you want to hang out with. You can't say that if you want marriage and family. Even though you're only 25 years old, you can't play that card. To me, that's very Moon Saturn. Okay. That's very Moon Saturn. It's like, I expect the woman that I'm with to be like past all that. I expect the woman that I'm with to be very like mature. Okay. But fine, great, wonderful. But at the same time, you're a 39-year-old dating a 25-year-old. So, the delusion is strong with that one. Okay. Now, the next one is the next thing he is saying to her is, these people, meaning, the people he doesn't want her to hang out with, these people don't get your time, your kindness, at the sacrifice of my time with you. Okay. He's saying these people don't get your time and your kindness at the sacrifice of my own. Okay. And I think that is very Venus, Saturn, and Scorpio, because it's very scorekeeping type of energy, where it's like, I'm measuring the time you spend with these people who I deem bad versus the time you spend with me. And I will not sacrifice my time over those people. Okay. So to me, that's a very scorekeeping Venus, Saturn, and Scorpio type of an energy there. Okay. And the next thing he said is, I'm sort of done explaining myself. He's basically like, take it or leave it. I'm done explaining myself. I told you what I want, that type of thing. And I'm done explaining myself. To me, that's very Mars and Libra square Mercury. I'm done explaining myself. I already explained it to you, that type of thing. And then his girlfriend at the time, she asked him, would you feel better if the cover of the video that I have on Instagram was different? And because the cover of her Instagram video shows her in a swimsuit surfing, and he wasn't comfortable with that. She said, would it be better if I changed the cover of the video? And he said, yeah, that would be better. But what's best is not showing you a video, but don't show videos of you in a bathing suit looking like you're wearing a thong, pretty much is what he was saying. Okay. And he calls it a bathing suit and all, which I just think is also funny. He's like, if you need to take pictures of yourself in a bathing suit and disrespect my boundaries that way, I'm like, bathing suit is such like a 1950s term for a swimsuit, I'm like, why is he talking to her like she's a 5-year-old who didn't clean her room? You know what I mean? It's very condescending. But he's talking about the bathing suit, and she replies back, it's not a thong, but okay. Like, it's a bathing suit. It's not a thong. And this is where he says, You want to argue, but I don't. Okay. Very Mars and Libra. You want to argue, but I don't. Well, you're in the conversation. So obviously you're arguing too, But anyway, and then the next thing he says is, I love that your therapist thinks that I suck. I literally am the best boyfriend on earth. Here's the quote. Okay. And so his girlfriend was seeing a therapist. He's saying, I love that you're the girlfriend's therapist thinks that he sucks, which he does, but I'm literally the best boyfriend on earth, right? Sun, Jupiter, Neptune, and Sagittarius. I'm literally the best on earth. How dare you? It's like, okay. And then he says, and then he has a text called plain and simple. The words are just plain and simple, which to me, he's starting out a list calling plain and simple, which is very Capricorn rising, Mercury in Capricorn. Plain and simple. If you need, and then he starts a bullet point list. If you need boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with men to model, need to post sexual pictures, okay? And then, he's basically saying, if you need to do these things, I'm not the partner for you. Okay. And there he is talking about ownership and control of the partner, Venus in Scorpio with Saturn there. But the business orientation of the text, if you read it, it sounds like your boss sending you a to-do list. If plain and simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, it sounds like directions to put together in a piece of IKEA furniture. It's like, you can't just send, you got to talk to your partner about these things. You can't just give them a plain and simple list and then assume it's over, So anyway, it's a very ridiculous way to communicate with your partner. And clearly, he's getting off on the fact that he's 40 and she's 25 and communicating with her like he's her camp counselor and she's just, done something wrong, or like he's her father. It's a very weird energy. Okay. And then he's telling her, oh, and modeling, which is the last profession I would be with as a partner. Then he's telling her, and oh, modeling is actually the last profession that my partner would have that I would ever be with. Okay. Venus and Saturn conjunction, looking down on like superficial beauty or looking down on, beauty as a standard, right? Looking down on that energy and saying, oh, modeling is the last profession I would want my partner to have. Okay, well, you knew that when you approached her and you knew that when you two started dating. So why are you with a model then, right? But anyway, he is looking for a woman with modesty who's not superficial. And then he's telling her, go model. It's a fulfilling life. You'll love it, right? Real depth and substance and sustainability for relationships. Okay. So there he's clearly being very sarcastic with her, Mars square Mercury. And he's also talking about relationship sustainability and long-term relationships, Venus, Saturn, okay, Capricorn rising, sustainability, okay, very rigid, kind of like, if you need to go do this, then sorry, I can't live with that. But at the same time, he approaches her knowing all of that about her. You know what I mean? It's very delusional. So then then he tells her, so celebrate your life. So celebrate yourself and your life however you please and shine bright. Okay. But I don't want to have to deal with it. Okay. So he's telling her, be you, celebrate your life the way that you want to and shine brightly. I don't want to have to deal with you shining brightly though. I don't want to deal with that, which is very Jupiter, Sun, Neptune in the 12th house, right? It's very lazy. It's very, very lazy energy. You go and, giving lip service, right? I think like Mercury and Capricorn, very business-like. You go be the best you can be. Go get them, champ. You're going to win the race. Good job. Like very, and it's a very Mars and Libra way to fight too. It's like, oh, you go be the best you can be. Shine bright like a diamond. I don't want anything to do with it though. your shining is too much for me, that type of thing. It's just a little ridiculous, you know? And then he tells her, I'd love to know your answer. So he's telling her, I need to know if you're going to do these things or not. I'd love to know your answer before the premiere of this movie, so I'm not put in the position of publicly flaunting our love if my boundaries are going to be disrespected. So he's basically saying, you're not coming to this premiere with me unless you agree to my demands. And, when he talks about publicly flaunting their love, you can't help but think about Venus and Saturn in the 10th house, right? Publicly flaunting. I need to know that you're serious, though. I need you to know you're going to follow my rules and respect my authority. Okay. And I need to know that you're going to respect my authority. Very Eric Cartman, right? Otherwise, I don't want to be publicly flaunting this relationship type of thing. Okay. That's very Venus, Saturn in the 10th house. Okay. And then the other thing, so that they go back and forth, but another thing that he mentioned is he said to her, all I want in life is to be a family person and start a family. So that is that, and that will be my immediate goal, is what he's saying, talking about his goal, Capricorn rising, Saturn and Scorpio. All I want to be is be a family person, Moon in Cancer, start a family. Okay. So he wants to be Moon trine Saturn, Moon trine Pluto. He wants to have, a long enduring family where he's not abandoned, or where he has, which is fine. I want to be a family person and start a family. Now, interestingly, when you look at family, the house that represents family, it's this 4th house. The ruler of the 4th house is represented by that Venus, right? So he's in a conjunction with family. So you can see family is already important to him. Also, you can see that he himself, okay, the planet representing himself in the chart, Saturn and Scorpio, is in a trine to the moon. Okay. Family importance. Also, we see the ruler of the 7th house of partner in a trine to Saturn, which I've talked about multiple times, the ruler of the 7th. Okay. I want a family. Additionally, we talked about children. All right. The ruler of the 5th house rising on his ascendant. Okay. All these signs are, and that's what we look for in astrology. If we're trying to do good astrology, is we look for multiple testimonies. And testimonies was a term that Ptolemy used, who was an ancient astrologer back in the day. And, his books have been translated and rewritten, but in the books, he talks about having multiple testimonies to support whatever you're saying about a chart. And that's why I would say, looking at this chart, like the importance of family, children, relationships, stability in relationships, first and foremost, the number one important thing for him, which I said, again, that is completely fine that he has that as a goal. But the way he's going about getting it is a little too much. Okay. And let's see. Let me see if there is anything else I want to talk about. Well, I think it's really, he made a movie about him and his therapist. And, Jonah Hill also really likes to surf and be in the water. He has all these planets in the 12th house. The 12th house is a water house. The sun is the ruler of his 8th house, water house. Okay. Jupiter rules his 12th house, water house. So of course he likes, being in the water. He doesn't really like the media. He likes being out of public eye, which is very much like a leave me alone, sun in the 12th house. I need my time. I need time away from, the public, the media, etc. I need time on my own. So very much, you would say, okay, he's a Sagittarius Sun Jupiter person, but he is very introverted in a lot of ways too, which we've already kind of talked about that. And he hates the media. He wants privacy. And Here's the thing. You have to wonder if Jonah Hill has surrounded himself with a bunch of like yes men or yes women, because when we look at like who would represent the therapist in the chart, that would be Jupiter, the guru, the guide. Okay. So he has a Sun Jupiter conjunction, and he has a very close relationship with his therapist. But when his therapist talks about him, he talks about him as this very like courageous, strong, wonderful human being, telling him he's doing no wrong. He's wonderful. He's succeeding in life, all of this. Nothing is going wrong. He's great. He's brilliant. He's wonderful. That's how his therapist talks about him. And you also have to wonder about his friends too. The ruler of the 11th house is also that Jupiter. He's in a conjunction with his friends. His friends has certainly helped out his career. Seth Rogen, those type of people have definitely helped out his career. But who is going to tell him that he is literally not the best boyfriend on the entire planet? Who is going to be the one to tell him that? Is it his therapist? I don't think so. He's with his therapist in the 12th house. Is it going to be his friends? I don't think so. He's with his friends in the 12th house. His friends, a couple of his friends have also gotten busted for trying to hook up with underage women as well. So, is it going to be his wife talking back to him or, giving it to him straight? I don't think so. I don't think he has any tolerance for that. I think the only person that he can really say things to him has been his own mother. But unfortunately, the things that she's said in the past to him have been very negative towards his appearance and what he looks like, diminishing his self-confidence, right? Sun quincunx Chiron. And who's gonna tell him, right? Who's gonna let him know, hey, buddy, you're not the swell freaking guy that you think you are. You've got some real problems here. Who's going to be the one to tell him that? I don't know who. That's the thing. Okay. And to me, he's completely unaware. That's the thing. And the 12th house can be an amazing place of self-discovery, but it can also be a place of total lack of awareness as well. And we can see him more towards that lack of awareness. Now, it's interesting in the movie that he made with his therapist, he does come off as a person who is seeking answers and as a person who is exploring the nature of living in kind of like a philosophical way, which is very Sun and Sagittarius with Jupiter. But I also think he has a side of him that's very preachy, very know-it-all, thinks he's always in the right about everything, not great energy. Okay. And we have to make room for both of those contradictions when we're looking at a chart. Like we can find somebody who is really into therapy and self-discovery, which is very 12th house kind of a thing, very internalized in that type of energy, who's actively seeking how to live, what's the best thing to do, but also at the same time is completely disconnected from the reality of how he's treating people, and also has a bunch of yes men surrounding him, telling him, hey, buddy, perfect, right? Round of applause. Nobody really calling him out for what he's doing. Okay. And I also just want to say too, I think he's a very difficult person to work with. And you look at the ruler of his 10th house of career is squaring his midheaven and his Mercury. Now, he has been known when he's worked with people to keep the takes running, take after take after take, and keeping people there way longer than they need to be because he's trying to improvise. And Seth Rogen, who's a friend of his, actually is the only one that's actually said anything kind of negative about him, said that he's one of the most difficult actors to work with. Okay. So, and Jennifer Lawrence, who worked with him on Don't Look Up, said that she had a very hard time filming with him, but she said it in a very nice way, you know how she talks, but she said they were running take after take after take. And the entire day, they spent an entire day of him just improvising and throwing insults at her. Now, she wasn't acting like she was mad at him, but it's like, okay, what is going on? It's take after take after take, insult after insult after insult. Another D-list celebrity was on a show with him at the same time and said he treated her like a low-grade dick. and treated her like she was no one. Also, Don Lemon, who's an anchor on CNN, ran into him at a hotel and, went up to shake his hand and say, "Hey, buddy, I think you're really funny. Nice to meet you." Don Lemon said that he was not kind and treated him like he was the help or like he was a bellhop at the hotel instead of like a friend or a fan coming up and saying hello. So, I mean, he's had some people out there talking about him. And interestingly, when Sarah Brady came forward with those text messages, another young actress revealed at the time that when she was 16 years old and he was 24, that he basically like threw himself on her and, tried to kiss her and forcefully like threw himself at her. And so she came out to talk about that as well. So here we see multiple instances of somebody who doesn't have any self-awareness of what they're doing to other people and is letting like their own trauma be the only thing that matters, So that kind of attitude, not great. Okay. And, like I said before, I don't think he's a person that likes change, especially when it comes to family, his relationships, women, children. That moon is in a quincunx to Uranus. I don't think he likes change at all. Like I said, I think he likes safety. I think he likes security. He doesn't like women who are wild or have wild pasts. He's too sensitive to be challenged like that. Like he's way too sensitive to be with a woman who would challenge him in any way like that because he's too fragile. Okay. And, even after all the therapy, he's still too fragile. And, some people are just fragile and you have to go, okay, well, they're fragile. But, there's also fragile narcissists out there. So we have to be aware of that. Okay. And one of the very last things that I want to mention about him is I wondered if as a child he was very colicky and if he cried a lot as a child. And I see that moon in Cancer in the 6th house. I wonder if he was somehow annoying to his mother or if somehow he was very, very colicky, very, very fussy as a baby. I also wonder if he dealt with sensory overwhelm. That moon is in a conjunction to Uranus. And to me, or not in a conjunction, it's in a quincunx to Uranus, telling me that he may have difficulty with processing sensory information and that he is very prickly and crabby, and that too much coming at him at once is going to be too overwhelming. Now, that's all fine and well, but you can't, you don't want to choke out other people for that, especially when you're adult. Now, as a child, I could see him having issues with processing sensory information, and also, being very colicky and very crying a lot as a child. I could see that with that right there. But I also think too, with this moon in Cancer trine Saturn, he has a huge need for the maternal energy in his life, whether it's his mom or a girl he's with, whoever, to be very consistent, to be very stable, to be like reassuring over and over and over again. Moon trine Pluto, I won't leave you. I won't abandon you. I'm here. I'm consistent. I'm everyday type of energy. And not having that really throws him into a triggering reaction. And, it's interesting because he's now had a child and you have to wonder, how is he going to be as a father? Like I said, I think he's probably going to be kind of strict. He's going to be a provider. He's going to want to teach his kids things. He's got the North Node in Gemini in the 5th house. So being able to get his ideas and thoughts across to his children and maybe even kind of make them take on his world perspective could definitely be a thing. I also think perhaps at one point, maybe I feel like he could have 2 children. Okay. So he's had a daughter. He may have one other child or he may have twins. I also could see that too for him. But those are my predictions, and that is what I am seeing in his chart, everybody. Do I think that he has problems and issues? Yes, I do. Do I think that he is controlling and manipulative with beautiful women that he doesn't feel adequate around? Yes, I do. I really, really do. But we'll see. He's not with the ex anymore, and thankfully she's moved on. I heard that she went to law school and she's moved on with her life. And now he's with the baby's mama, which is fine. Hopefully he is treating her better, but I don't know. Anyway, that is what I am going to go ahead and leave everybody with. I know it's kind of a weird note to end on, but thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for watching, and would love to hear any of your thoughts, your feedbacks, your comments. Namaste. Take care, everybody.